Hey everyone, Aaron here from Gough Custom, and today I'm going to show you how to make a knife from start to finish in Fusion 360. We're going to start with a paper and pencil sketch like this, and then end up with a full 3D CAD model of the blade, bevel, and handle scales, all in CAD. You don't need that much experience to come in and succeed with this video, but if you don't have any previous Fusion 360 experience, it would be a great idea to watch my previous video, which is a beginner's introduction to Fusion 360. So I just wanted to take a quick second to say a huge thank you to my patrons. Obviously, making videos like this doesn't really help pay the rent around here, so having patrons allows me to tackle a much wider range of topics and gives me more time to share my knowledge, which I really appreciate. So if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please consider becoming a patron. Let's jump into the video.
Underneath the video, there's a link to this drawing. So just download this, have a quick look at it, and make note of the length and the height. So now in Fusion 360, with a blank drawing, the very first thing we're going to do is to create a new component. So if you come up here and go create new component, and then we're just going to call that blade. Within our blade component, the first thing we're going to do is insert the drawing that we're going to use as our guide and make sure that's the right size. First, we're going to go create, sketch, and we're going to create a sketch on the XY origin plane, which is this one that's lying down flat. And then we're going to draw a rectangle that's going to serve as a guide for placing the drawing. So go create, rectangle, 2-point rectangle, and then click and drag. And if you don't click again and you hit tab, you'll notice that these dimension input boxes are changing. So I'm just going to put 8.25 inches for length and then 1.125 inches for the height. And we're going to use this as a guide for placing our canvas. So up here in insert, go insert canvas, and this will let us place the drawing of our knife. So click insert from my computer, go to your downloads folder and find the drawing and then click open. Now it's going to ask you on which face you would like to place this canvas. And we could choose the center of this rectangle, but we actually are just going to have this as a temporary guide. We're going to delete it in a little bit, so we don't want to place it on this face. Instead, we want to place it on the XY origin plane. Click there, and then you'll see this tiny little drawing. So we need to resize this, and then we can drag the square handle around to put it in the right place. So the size is pretty much correct. You can see it's actually on a bit of an angle. So you can grab this top rotation handle and turn it. Now the problem is that it's in between those two snap points. So just come into this box and change the 5 to a 3. And then the knife is pretty much perfect. So once we've got the drawing of the knife correctly positioned and sized, we're just going to come over here to the canvas toolbox and click OK. We no longer need this rectangular guide, and it's actually going to get in our way. So just click and drag to select it all and then hit delete. Okay, so to get started, we're just going to put in a straight line along this section of the edge. So if you go create line and then create the longest straight line that we can here, about here looks correct. And then we're going to continue this line with a spline. So you go create spline, fit point spline, choose the end of our straight line, and then place the other end of the spline right up at the tip of the knife. We can't manipulate the handles of this while we're still in the spline tool, so you have to just hit escape to get back to your regular mouse cursor, and then start dragging these handles around to get the right shape for the blade. So for the spine of the knife, it looks like we might actually be able to get away with a single spline. Create, spline, fit point spline, and we'll choose the tip of the knife, and then click all the way back here at the butt of the knife. And we'll manipulate the handles to try and get the exact shape that we want. There you go, perfect. Done this whole spine of the knife with a single spline. Some sections of the knife, like the butt here, don't necessarily need to be a spline because this looks like it's just a simple radius. So instead we can create an arc. So if you go create arc, 3-point arc, then you can create the two ends of your arc. So one at the butt of the knife and one at the bottom of the handle here. And then you can just create a simple radius by dragging. That looks about right. You can just click to place that arc. Do another spline for the handle shapes. And then this looks like it could be another arc as well. So I'll go create arc, 3-point arc, put in the two ends here, and then make our arc. So now that we've got the outline of the knife completed, we need to go through and add a couple of details. So let's do the coil first. So if you go create, circle, center diameter circle, then you're just going to choose the center point of the circle and then drag it out to be the size of the coil that you want. Then up here, we're going to create another circle for our pinhole, except this one's actually going to be dimensioned. So type 0.125 and then hit enter. We want to create another circle here that's perfectly in line with the other one. So to do that, we're going to go create, circle, center diameter circle, and then hover over the center point of this circle, and it will actually allow you to snap to that center point. So again, type 0.125 inches and hit enter. This third one isn't in the same plane as the other two pins, so we're not going to snap to the other pins. Instead, we're just going to go create circle, center diameter circle, and put it in where we think it should be. 0.125, hit enter, and then we can fine tune that position a little bit. Same here, we go create circle, center diameter circle for our lanyard hole. And the lanyard hole is going to be 0.25 inches in diameter, quarter inch. So now we have all of the details of our knife put in place and ready to go. So we're just going to go over here, click finish sketch, and then now it's time to make this into a 3D knife. So to do that, we're going to come up here to create, we're going to go extrude, and we're going to choose the area around the blade and click on it, and then we could just extrude in one dimension, but that means that the blade isn't going to be symmetrical around the XY origin plane. It's actually really convenient if it is, because then we can use that as our mirror plane if we want to replicate features from one side to the other. So to make it symmetrical, we're just going to go over here into the extrude toolbox and change it from one side to symmetric. And then here for distance, we want the total thickness of the knife to be 0.156 inches. But because it's symmetric, it's going to make it 0.156 inches in each direction. Fusion actually allows you to do formulas in boxes like this. So we can say 0.156 divided by 2, and that will give us our correct overall dimension. Everything looks good, so we're just going to hit OK. Now let's get stuck into making the bevel. So the very first thing that we need to do is actually to create a plane. The plane will allow us to draw a sketch through the plunge line of the knife, and that's where we need to draw our bevel shape. So if we go up here to construct and then plane at angle, we're going to choose this line just at the front of the coil. And then you can see that now we have a plane that is at an angle relative to that line on the coil. So we're going to rotate this until it's lined up with the plunge line from our drawing. That looks like it's right at about 80 degrees. Then we're going to hit OK. Now on that plane, we're going to create a sketch. So go create sketch and then choose the plane as where we're going to draw the sketch. Then the very first thing we need to do is actually get a reference for where our blade intersects that sketch. So we're going to go create and then go down here to project, include, and go to intersect. Make sure the selection filter up here is set to bodies, and then we'll click the blade body and then click OK. And this will give us a rectangle showing us exactly where the blade intersects our drawing. To make life a little bit easier as we're doing this sketch, we're actually going to come over here in the view tree and go to blade 1, bodies, body 1, which is our knife blade, and then turn that off. And that'll allow us just to see only the sketch without having to worry about the blade body getting in the way. Now, what we need to do is draw a tool for cutting away a section of the blade to make our bevel. So for this, we're going to create a couple of lines. So if you go create line, draw a line upward from the center. This line upward is going to be half of our desired edge thickness. Type 0.01 and then hit enter. Now I'm going to draw a line from here back to the place where we want our bevel to end. I'm just going to choose somewhere around there. You could set that by angle or distance. This section, this triangle here, is actually going to be the part of the blade that we're going to be cutting away. To make this work really nicely, we actually want to extend our cutting tool a little bit. So what we're going to do is go create line. We're going to choose the end of the bevel up here, and then move the line around until you see this blue double line icon. That means parallel. So we're creating a line that's parallel with that part of the triangle. So just going to click here, and then create a longer box tool around that triangle. So this is perfect. Click finish sketch. And now we need to come back up here to the view tree and turn the body back on. Now to actually create our bevel, we're going to use a tool called sweep. So if you come up here to create, sweep, and then we're going to first choose the path. So click on path here, and then choose the edge of the blade. And then come over here to profile, and we're going to choose the extra part of this tool that we made, and then also this triangular inside part. And you can see that what it's actually doing is taking that shape that we made in this sketch and then kind of dragging it along the knife blade and cutting away material as it goes. Click OK in the sweep toolbar, and then we can have a look at our knife blade. So now that we've got our blade bevel done, the next thing we need to do is create our plunge line. Because right now, the start of our plunge line is this kind of impossible square corner. So we need to make a nice rounded transition in here. To do that, the first thing we're going to do is create another sketch. So we'll go create, sketch, and then create it on this flat surface of the edge. From here, we need to get a reference point up here at the top of the plunge line. So we're going to go create, project, and then choose this little corner and go OK. Then all we need to do is create a circle. So if we go create, center diameter circle, choose the top of this, and then extend the circle down to the edge, that's it, we're done. So we're going to go finish sketch. Then from here, we're just going to create another sweep. So we go create, sweep. For our path, we'll just choose this line, which is actually the inside corner of our plunge line. And then for the profile, we'll just choose the circle. We're going to keep the operation as cut, and then hit OK. And you'll see that creates a really simple rounded plunge line. And then just the last thing we're going to do is cut a swedge on the top of this. So to get started, we're going to create another plane. So we're going to go construct, plane at angle, and then we're going to choose the tip of the knife right here. So we'll choose that edge. And then you want to move the plane, you want to rotate it so that it's lined up and pointing at the end of the swedge up here. So we're just going to rotate this around by turning the rotation handle, and then we'll look right down the barrel of it like this, and you can see it's not quite lined up. It needs to be a little bit to the left. So this probably needs to be -9 degrees. So if we have a look at that, that looks pretty good. It's nicely lined up. So we'll just hit OK. Then on that plane, we're going to create another sketch. So go create, sketch, click on this plane. And then we need to find out where this blade body intersects that plane. So again, we're going to create an intersection. We'll go create, project, include, and then intersect. Make sure that the selection filter is set to bodies, and then click this body and click OK. And now if we turn off the body just to get rid of the visual clutter, you can see we have this shape here that shows our intersection with the blade. And all we're going to do is draw a line. So if we go create line from the very tip of the knife to the back of that intersection, and then we'll go finish sketch. And that straight line is actually going to be used to create yet another plane. Sometimes things can seem a little long-winded, but once you get used to thinking in a certain way, it all comes together pretty quickly. So we're going to go construct plane at angle. We're going to choose this long straight line, and then we're just going to turn back on that body so we can see what we're doing. We're going to rotate this until this shaded section where it's intersecting looks quite a lot like the swedge that we want. So right now it's set to at 15 degrees, so let's hit OK. And then we're actually going to use that plane as a cutting tool. So if we go up here to modify, and then you go down here to split body, we'll say the body to split is the knife blade, the splitting tool is this plane, and then we'll hit OK. And then you can just turn off that second body. So in the view tree here, we're going to turn off body 3, which is the offcut. And then down the bottom in construction, we'll turn off plane 6. And we can also turn off the sketch, just so that we have a nice look at it. Look at that. We have a nice swedge built in as part of our knife blade now. We don't need this offcut body anymore that's part of the swedge. So we can right click on that and say remove. And you'll see that'll actually get reflected down in the history bar here. So now to give us a really nice clear view, we can come over to the object tree here, go in canvases, and then turn off the blade canvas, and we can see exactly what we've ended up with. But obviously all of that work has just been done on one side. The other side looks totally bare. Now, the naive way to do that would be to go on the other side and replicate all of the work we've just done. But we don't need to do that. All we need to do is create a mirror. So if we go up here to create mirror, the type of the mirror is going to be faces. So we're just going to select all of these faces that we created during the making of our blade bevel. And then the mirror plane is going to be our XY origin plane. So this one that's flat relative to the knife. And then we can have a look on the other side, and we can see that all of those faces of our blade bevel are now replicated left to right. So now that we've got our blade completed, let's rip through adding in some handle scales. For that, we're going to want to add a new component. Come up here to the main object in the object tree and click this. That's going to activate the root component, which is kind of like the placeholder for everything in the drawing. Then from there, we're going to say new component, and we're going to call this handle scale right. And you can see that adds it just underneath the blade, which is exactly what we want. So now inside this component, we're going to create a sketch. So if you come up here to create sketch, and we're going to create it on the side of the tang of the knife. So we already have all the geometry, like the pinhole, lanyard hole, everything included in this sketch because we created it on this plane. But the only thing we need to add is a line for the front of the handle scale. So we're going to go create arc, 3-point arc, and then we're going to put a point down here at the bottom of the handle, and then a point up here at the spine of the knife, and then change this arc to something that you like. So I'm just going to create it right there. And then I'm going to say finish sketch. Now we can go up here to create extrude, choose this section of the handle scale, and then drag it up to extrude it. So we're going to say 0.375 inches in height, 3/8, and we have a very crude handle scale. First thing we're going to do is add an overall curve to the handle scale. So we're going to go construct, plane at angle. We're going to choose the very front corner of the handle scale right here, and then change the angle to be 90 degrees. So you can just type in 90 and hit enter. Then we're going to create a sketch on that plane. So create a sketch here. And then what we want to do is actually just draw a really big circle. So we'll say create circle, center diameter circle, and we'll draw a really big circle like this. And it needs to go through the handle scale. So you don't want it to be above the handle scale like this. It has to be below. And that's our nice big curve. We could make it smaller if you want. So we can say create sketch dimension and then add a dimension on here. So right now we can see the radius is 5.14 inches. If we change that to a 3-inch radius and then hit escape to get out of the dimension tool and then move this circle up, we can just put it inside the handle scale like that. And then we need to make this into a cutting tool. So what we're going to do is just go create rectangle, 2-point rectangle, and just really quickly draw a rough rectangle entirely enclosing both the knife and the circle that we made. Then you can say finish sketch. And we're going to do yet another sweep using that circle. So if we say create sweep, we are going to choose the spine of the knife for the path that we want to follow. And then we're going to choose this big rectangle as our cutting tool. And for the operation, we're going to say cut. And right now it's saying the body would intersect itself, blah, blah. It's throwing an error. And all you need to do is change the orientation from parallel to perpendicular, or vice versa in this case. So we've just made it so that it's set to parallel. And now you can see that it's sweeping that cutting tool along the handle and adding a nice rounded over shape to it. Now, just to demonstrate a concept, I just realized that I would have really liked to add a chamfer to the front of this. But if we do it now, that chamfer is going to follow that curved line. So it's going to end up with this really weird shape on the front here. We don't want that. So if you forget to do something in the right order, what you can actually do is just come down here to the history bar and drag the history marker backward. So now I've gone back in time one step, and I'm actually before I executed that sweep. And then I can come up here to modify, chamfer, and add in the chamfer that I want on the front of this handle scale. So let's just add something like that and hit OK. And then we can come down to the history bar and drag the history marker all the way to the right. And you see now we've got both our chamfer and our rounded handle scale. Now we want the edges of the handle scale to be rounded over. So we'll come up here to modify, fillet, and then we're going to choose the spine of the knife here. And you can either click and drag, or you can put in numbers up here. So this is a little bit of my personal style. I like the fillet on the spine to match up with the chamfer on the front. So we're just going to tweak that until it matches, which is right there. And then over here in the fillet toolbox, you're going to hit the plus button, and that lets you add another set of fillets with their own parameters. So we'll choose the underside of the handle scale here, drag that down, probably around 0.16 or so. No, we can go bigger, 0.18, just so again, so that it matches up with the bottom of this chamfer. That looks perfect. So we'll just hit OK in the fillet toolbox, and we have our handle scale. And again, to get that on the other side, rather than duplicating all that work, we're just going to create a mirror. So if you come back here to the view, to the object tree, and activate your root component, then say create mirror, over here it's going to say objects. We're going to just choose that handle scale. And then the mirror plane is again our XY origin plane. So just this one that looks flat. We'll say OK. So here we have our finished knife. We have our blade with the bevels and the swedge. We have a pair of handle scales. And everything is nicely organized so that you can find things as you need to.
So this video was a long one because we had so much stuff to cover, but hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you all have CAD models of knives ready to go now. If not, and you have some problems or questions, please just let me know in the comments and I'll absolutely do my best to answer. Make sure that you're subscribed and that you have notifications turned on for when I upload my next video, and I'll see you all again soon.